you'll realize there was never anything wrong with the world. There was only something wrong with my vision of the world, with my ideas of how the world should be. The only thing that was wrong with the world is my selfishness. And actually, you'll even then realize in an even deeper self-embrace that even your own selfishness and all of your biases, they weren't wrong. They were absolutely necessary as part of what love is. So actually, counterintuitively and paradoxically, selfishness and corruption are absolutely fundamental to love. You might think they're the opposite of love. They're not. They're only the opposite of love in a sort of dualistic sense. When you fully awaken, you'll realize that selfishness and corruption are just as much a part of love as anything else. Because love is not just infinite, love is also finite. And so, while you can think of the Godhead as pure, infinite love in its undiluted, uncorrupted form, when you see a human being walking around on the sidewalk, you can look at that human being and you can say, that is a finite form of love walking on the sidewalk. It's going to express love in a finite way. It's going to be biased. It's going to be selfish because it has to be in order to keep walking. If it wasn't selfish, if it wasn't biased, it couldn't walk. It couldn't talk. It couldn't do anything. It couldn't be anything. It couldn't have any form. It would have to be a purely formless singularity of love. Now that's great. The only problem with it is that it has no form. Therefore, it can't look like a human. It can't be any kind of physical object. It's effectively nothing. So there's a there's a very profound trade-off here between the infinite and the finite. And the reason that you don't find angelic human beings very often, the reason human beings act like devils and they disappoint you and they're selfish and they're petty and they lie and they cheat and they steal and they manipulate and they are deluded and they are ideological and they're closed-minded and they're abusive and they're vindictive and they're fearful and they're petty and they're jealous and they're argumentative and they don't get along and they fight with each other and they go to war and they kill each other. The reason all this happens is because it must happen. Because the only thing that can exist as a perfect unity is completely formless. If it has a form, it's going to be less than infinite, which is going to lead to conflict. And it's going to lead to suffering. And this is just an existential trade-off between the infinite and the finite. And that's something you have to swallow and accept and love. And if you can manage that, then you have completely integrated all of reality within yourself. And then you're finally at peace, regardless of what's going on around you. Now, mind you, even though I say all this, I talk about love and peace and beauty and so forth, God, that does not mean that the actual material conditions around you will automatically be peaceful. We could all die in World War III tomorrow. So you might say, well, then, Leo, what's the point? Isn't the whole point to prevent World War III? No, actually, here's the point. The point is that if we're all going to die in World War III tomorrow, I'm going to die knowing that it's love, and you're going to die crying and suffering and being miserable of how the world went to hell. That's going to be the difference. And you might say, well, Leo, who cares about that difference? Because we're both going to die. So it has no difference. Except it does have a difference, because the other thing you don't realize is that death itself is imaginary. So you're not really going to die. You think you're going to die. That's another difference between you and me. I know that I can't die. So the difference is that if you actually have clear perception of reality, you can die in peace. You're beyond death. You've transcended death. And you can die without regret. And you can also live in peace and without regret and without guilt. You can be calm because you actually clearly and distinctly perceive that reality is perfect. That's the real key here that I'm trying to guide you towards. Ultimately, what I'd like for you, if you're following my work, I'd like you to reach a point where you can just sit and realize that reality is completely perfect and that there's nothing wrong and that there could never be anything wrong, no matter what happens. This is the ultimate power. Now, the mistake that people make here is that when a materialist hears me talking like this, they will say, oh, Leo, but this is just some sort of hippie, new age bullshit that you've brainwashed yourself with. I mean, sure, maybe I can sit down for a few years, and if I watch enough of your videos, eventually I'll bullshit myself with enough of your ideas that I will start to believe, like you, that actually everything is perfect and that reality is all love, and I can fool myself with these sorts of illusions and fantasies, but it won't be true. But that's not what I'm telling you. What I'm telling you is the exact opposite of that. What I'm telling you is that if you go through this process, it's a deconstructive process. You deconstruct all of your self-biases, you deconstruct your mind, you jailbreak your mind, you do all this work, you become more conscious. And as you're doing so, it's not that you're filling your mind with new age beliefs that are all positive. No. All you're doing is you're just clearing away the garbage and the ego smog. You're clearing that away, and eventually, when you've cleared it all away and your perception is perfectly clear, what you realize is that the truth is perfection itself and love itself. This is not something you are filling your mind with as an ideology. It's an emptying of all ideology. And what you'll realize, the recontextualization mindfuck will come when you realize that, oh, all that negativity and all of my problems and all of my cynicism and all of my conspiracy theories and all of my demonization of others and including myself. Oh, all of that was the layers upon layers upon layers of shit that my mind was filled with. It's not that love is some new age belief. It's that fear and hate and greed and pettiness and evil. These are the materialist beliefs that you've been indoctrinated into, that you've never questioned. You take them as reality. You take them as physics. But they're not physics. They're just beliefs. Very bad, very limiting beliefs. And they're not true.